1.
This is Anthony Marquez, better known as Kung Lao for Mortal Kombat. Make sure to like and subscribe to NerdCage Live. Be there. Us.
Sindel wins. Fatality. Finish him. Flawless victory. Prepare to die.
That's right, NerdCage Nation. The original Sindel, Tanya, and Serena, Leah Montalongo will be here on NerdCage Live for a live Q&A on Friday, September 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 7 p.m. Central. Be there.
Greetings, citizens! You're now trapped in a nerd cage with your hosts Mark and Jay. We hope you have a smashing good time.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a full-blown Shang-Chi spoiler discussion. If you've not seen Shang-Chi yet, just a fair warning, we're going to be spoiling the hell out of it. But if you've seen it, then let's have fun and let's have the spoiler discussion. Here we go. You're about to witness the strength of geek knowledge. Hello and welcome. That's right, you're trapped in NerdCage Live. This ain't just a reaction show, but a debate show and a live discussion on everything that makes people like you and I tick. So thank you for joining us tonight on this bonus stream that is the Shang-Chi spoiler discussion. Please hit that like button and subscribe. I'm your co-host, Jay G, certified geek, 7 days a week, coming to you live from Syracuse, New York, and always among us, our moderator and trollhammer, Joe from Fallen One Gaming, and always with me, the warrior from Wakanda, the Fiend from Louisville, my man, Mark Withers. Introduce our guest.
What's going on, man? Super excited to be here as usual. And yes, we are doing a open spoiler discussion tonight on Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. We got a lot to unpack here, and so we thought we'd bring in our good friend Wild Band to kind of help us chop this up. Wild Band, how are you tonight?
What is up, NerdCage family? I'm doing good. It's great to be back here on NerdCage once again. I'm very excited to get my thoughts out with you all about this movie.
Awesome. We got a lot to unpack, but before we do that, Joe, who do we have in the chat tonight?
So far, only people talking in the chat is Shay Smithers and Norton's Chin. I see there's 7 people there. Speak up. Forever hold your peace.
Right on, guys. Thanks for joining us. We know this is a little bit short notice, but if you've seen this movie and you've got something to say, feel free to chime in. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you think any of us are right or wrong, because we all have varying opinions about what we thought about this movie.
Oh yes, we're gonna debate tonight, and not to mention this is our simulcast, so we are here on Facebook Live and Twitch and YouTube. So anybody out there on Facebook and Twitch, by all means, chime in. This is exciting. This is our first official simulcast, because last Thursday we had technical issues, but we are simulcasting for the first time. And speaking of Twitch, Joe and I will be playing Marvel vs. Capcom 2 Tuesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So come hang with your boys for our first ever exclusive Twitch gaming, first ever gaming stream for NerdCage. Should be a lot of fun. And while we're on that topic as well, in case you missed the promo, special announcement that we made Thursday. We are very excited to welcome the original Sindel, Leah Montalongo, who was the original Sindel in Mortal Kombat 3. She was the original Tanya in Mortal Kombat 4, and she was also Serena in Mythology Sub-Zero. We're going to be doing this live Q&A on Friday, September 24th at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 7 Central. Please be there and listen. this is gonna be a pop-in stream. So forgive us if we can't get to all your questions that night. But if you don't want your question to be missed, submit your questions to us now, especially like on the live Facebook discussion group. We will definitely make sure your question gets asked if you submit it to us early. So that being said, all that is done. Wild Ben, since you are our special guest today, and you know you're a normal guest on NerdCage, but I want you to give your general thoughts on Shang-Chi first. Go ahead.
All right, general thoughts. I on the way home from the movie last night, I found the perfect way to get my thoughts across. I wasn't disappointed that it was a bad movie, because by no means was this a bad movie. However, I was disappointed by the fact that I didn't like it as much as I thought I would.
Mm-hmm. That is fair. I'm kind of on the same boat with you, maybe a little harder. But go ahead and explain, why were you generally like let down by this movie?
I'll first say what I liked. Simu Liu was the best part of the movie. He was like, there were points like, okay, it's sometimes easy to differentiate an actor and a character that they're playing on screen, and I was experiencing that a lot less. Like sometimes, like, oh, that's Simu Liu, but then there were points like, he's Shang-Chi, or Shang-Chi as it's pronounced in the movie. I love the fight choreography. That was absolutely badass. It was, and they did a lot of really fun camera work with a lot of the fight choreography too. It wasn't very choppy. There were like a lot of long shots focusing on the fight choreography. That was really nice. Now, I personally am not a fan of Awkwafina, so she was whatever to me in this movie. Shang-Chi's sister, she wasn't great. She wasn't terrible. I liked Tony Leung as the real Mandarin, but
he was great.
People were like, "Oh, he steals every scene he's in." I'm like, okay. I mean, he's good, but okay. And one thing I can easily say I hated about this movie, they brought back Trevor from Iron Man 3.
Thank you.
Why?
I'm not the only
Why?
one. Go ahead.
Before I went to see Iron Man 3, I researched the hell out of it, like, oh, the Mandarin, Iron Man's #1 enemy. I am pumped to see this movie. It's fake. So right away, I was absolutely disappointed with that movie. And then I heard like a week or two ago that he was going to be in this movie. Like, okay, well, hopefully they'll show him like killing him, because I heard in the Marvel one-shot All Hail the King, like, oh, the real Mandarin was looking for him.
Right.
And apparently they were going to kill him, but then he became Mandarin's court jester of all things. So, and then he's in the movie for pretty much from when he's introduced to the rest of the movie. He is in it for a good amount of time. I was just, I did not like that they brought him back for this movie. I thought the ant character was nice. The dragon we see during the final battle was
Michelle
cool.
Yeoh. That's Michelle Yeoh. She is a
Yeah.
certified martial art. Well, she didn't start in martial arts. She started in ballet, but Mark loves her. We all love her. Like
she's one of my favorite martial artists of all time. She's fantastic.
She's female Jackie Chan.
Absolutely,
she
100%.
did her own stunts and own fights, and like Super Cop and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon are really the two. And Tomorrow Never Dies, even though she didn't really fight as much as she normally does, but those are her three big ones.
But yeah, I at least liked her character.
Yeah.
We now have a new material in the MCU, because we've had Vibranium, we've had Chitauri, and now we have Dragon Scale, and I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
I thought the two post-credit scenes that we got were both meh, with the first one being the better of the two, but I was like, oh, like they're both mind-blowing, and then Mark told me, like, oh, one of them's good, but the other one's not so much. So for me, I think overall, with like my opinion, this movie was oversold to me, and I think I went in with too high of expectations.
Yes, same here. Mark and I talked about, Mark, go ahead. I know you love this movie. We went back and forth on Facebook, and then we had we settled our differences in our TikTok video yesterday. So Mark, go ahead. By the way, we want to welcome Josh Bates. Thanks for coming in, man. Always nice to see you.
Good to see you, man.
Mark, go ahead, dish it out. I know you're the one that is like, you love this movie probably more than everybody else on the screen right now.
Right. So yeah, I probably had the highest opinion of this movie. And I thoroughly admit that my opinion may have been skewed by the fact that this was the first theatrical like visit that I've had in about 18 months. So I was hyped just off that, and then seeing it like, you know, in a big theater, an IMAX and everything like that, like it really amped up the experience for me. That said, I really enjoyed almost everything about this movie. I love the story. I love the chemistry between Simu Liu and Awkwafina. I like their friendship was really super believable to me. Like the back and forth that they had, like it really seemed to me as though they had been friends for about a decade, which is not something that like every two actors can do. Like I love the banter that they had, you know, between each other. You know, Michelle Yeoh, I cannot say enough like great things about her, and you know, like her contribution to this movie. I think that if anything was undersold in this movie, it was her appearance. Nobody's talking about that. But like the martial arts that she does in there, the scene where she's sort of teaching Shang-Chi how to use his abilities, like that was to me, that was like a top 10 MCU moment. I really loved that. There were some things in the movie that I didn't really enjoy. Like I thought the mythical creatures, the sort of what was it, like the chicken pig and like the, you know, some of like the weird looking horse, like there was no reason to have those images in there. Like they could have left that out, and to me it would have been a much better movie, especially since the CGI was not like where it needed to be for that. And I
think COVID had something to do with that. It's just my opinion.
Probably.
I have no proof. I'm just speculating, because I really feel like, based on when this movie was made, whenever they filmed it, I think COVID highly affected the quality. I think Marvel did not put all the resources and manpower into the CGI as a...
Yeah, my theory on that is that they probably diverted as many of their resources as they could towards Eternals. Because if you notice,
they're
like Kevin Feige is like...
high on that movie because of the...
For sure.
Because of the director.
Yeah, like, exactly.
You know,
like
the Oscar winning, by the way, I hate Nomadland. But they're like...
I liked it.
I didn't...
Yeah.
The problem is, I just don't think it was deserving of beating the other movies that it was up against. But anyway... But they're promoting that movie like this is for the first time we have an Oscar winner director for a Marvel movie. That's how they're promoting it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so I'll chime in, then Joe, I want to hear your thoughts. So I gave this movie a 5.5. I went at it hard, but let me just justify my reasonings for it. First and foremost, let me get the positives out of the way. My two positives. Actually, I have three positives. One, the fight between Shang-Chi and the guy with the white mask and the ponytail.
Death Dealer. Yeah.
Yes. Well, not the rooftop, on the top floor there.
Right.
That was friggin' awesome. Like they ripped the page off Skyfall. That was real hand-to-hand combat. Like, and that was just amazing. That may be one of 2021's best movie fights this year. And I'm gonna agree to what Mark just said earlier. Michelle Yeoh should have been in this movie more, but Michelle Yeoh training Shang-Chi, excellent.
Amazing.
Absolutely excellent.
Yeah.
And the third thing I personally liked, that they kept Awkwafina in the friend zone. They didn't. I'm not trying to. I'm just saying, like, I'm glad they didn't force the romance. They didn't force a romance. You know, they stayed friends. Even through the end of the movie.
Right.
They kind of hinted, like the grandmother said, "Hey, you should marry him. We really like him. You know them the longest. You should marry him." That's fine. I'm just glad they didn't force a romance story into the movie. I'm okay if, like, if they do more Shang-Chi or if they appear again. I'm okay if, like, maybe she'll have a near-death experience and then maybe it goes, "Oh, I almost lost you, Katie. Let's get married," or something. That's fine. But right now, for this movie, I'm glad they stayed friends and didn't force a romance story. Which is a nice change of pace, because every single goddamn Marvel movie has some kind of romance story, whether it's Natalie Portman and Thor or Pepper Potts and Tony, whatever. They always force that romantic story, and this time they stayed in the friend zone, and I actually kind of like that. I don't know why. I just feel like they did something different, and that's great.
I think I can agree with that, yeah.
Well, I feel like if they had tried to make, cause a love interest between the two of them, I don't know that it would have been as believable as if they just sort of kept them platonic. Because that part of it, that part of it was really believable in terms of like just the natural chemistry that they had. And I think if they would have tried to morph that into something else, it may have been too much. And they may have like realized that just kind of like as they were filming it. Who knows?
Yeah. But yes. So the negatives. Okay. And I'm being critical as possible. Please understand, I didn't go into hating this movie like, oh my God, because I'm perceived as the anti-MCU guy. Listen, I was excited for this movie because I'm a fan of Asian cinema, whether if it's Toho, Golden Harvest, Shaw Brothers. Like, I love Asian cinema, whether if it's Kung Fu or Tokusatsu, that's my thing. It's in my DNA. I'm a lifelong Jackie Chan fan, and so on and so forth. So, that being said, like, I had my expectations because I was expecting something fresh and different from Marvel, but they kept that same Marvel formula that's been working for them. I really wanted something different. Tagging on to what Wild Band said earlier, the hype. And I'm pointing my finger at John Campea, who had the audacity to say, this is the best martial arts movie since The Raid. I've never seen fights like this in my life. And I just, so I'm holding you to that. I'm holding you to that. Nowhere, if you ever seen the movie The Raid, nowhere close. Not even close.
Yeah.
Anywho. So anyway, the negatives. The first act of the movie. I felt like Kevin Feige sitting in the editing room. Hey, throw in a joke here. Throw in a joke here. Throw in a joke. We need more jokes. Put one in this. Put a joke in here. Make a fast cut to another joke. They forced way too many jokes early on in the movie. The second act, just when I was starting to really like the movie, tacking on to what Wild Band said, Trevor, what the hell? This man ruined Iron Man 3, and he ruined this movie for me too. There was absolutely no reason to have him in there. I know, Mark, you disagree with that, but I feel like there was absolutely no reason to have him in there because this was their chance to distance themselves from Iron Man 3 with the Mandarin. Really hated that. And then finally, the third act. Some of the worst CGI I've ever seen, especially in a movie. And I'm holding to the Marvel standard, especially in a 2021 movie. I expected better special effects. And then finally, other than the two fights I described earlier, a lot of those fights, to me, looked very fake. It looked really, really, really CGI and choppy, and it was just not believable for me. I really wanted real fights, because like I said, John Campea was saying these are some of the best fights since The Raid. Okay, well, The Raid had some really serious martial arts in this movie. This movie clearly had too much CGI fights, with the exception of that fight I told you about. There was way too much CGI fights, and it really, really bothered me. And the sad thing is, there was more real hand-to-hand combat in Black Panther and Captain America and the Winter Soldier had better hand-to-hand combat than this movie did. And that's a damn shame, because this was an Asian cast with an Asian director, and I was really expecting them to go full ham on some real intimate martial arts, and they failed to do so for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, you and I kind of talked off camera about that, and my rebuttal to that is that I agree with you in terms of when you compare this to The Raid and The Raid 2, but it's an unfair comparison, because the Raid movies are designed, those fights are designed to be realistic fights. This is essentially, by all accounts, a wuxia movie. It's traditional, old school wuxia fantasy, style of martial arts. And Tony Leung's character, Shang-Chi's father, even says early in the film that he's going to find this village because the people there study a style of martial arts that was passed down to them from the gods. So that tells you right off the bat that the things that they are going to do are supernatural in nature. Yeah. They're not going to look like normal martial arts. And if you look at a lot of the fight scenes, particularly the ones where they're fighting in the village, those are reminiscent of all like old school, like Shaw Brothers and Golden Harvest wuxia movies. Yeah. Like where, you know, like the body positioning and like the way that they throw a punch, the way that they throw a kick, it's designed to be that. It's not designed to look like Ong Bak or The Raid or anything that's like more realistic looking.
That's what I was kind of hoping, expecting again. John Campea, you know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he kind of, and I understand your point of view, because if I went in expecting that, I would be disappointed too. But as a fan of the comic and knowing that like Shang-Chi's abilities are like sort of supernatural, I kind of like expected, okay, they're not going to do just normal martial arts, because then what sets him apart from any other person who really like knows Kung Fu? You know, so that's my rebuttal. And it's, I definitely respect your opinion. I totally like get it. But for me, that was definitely not a breaking point. Like I was pretty happy.
To you is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which was a fantastical martial arts movie. Those fantastical fights looked more impressive to me than the fights in this movie. And that movie was from 20 plus years ago. You know?
Right, and I can see that point of view, but if you really go back and look at those fights, like really look at them, like for one thing, they're using wires versus CGI, and that's always going to look better. To me, practical effects are always going to look better than CGI.
I agree.
You know what I mean? But you know, some of the stuff that they're doing in those, like specifically like body positioning when they do certain moves, like the impact points, you know, when they're actually like, when someone gets struck by like a kick or by a punch, like those impact points do not look realistic, but you buy it because you understand that like, hey, this is a wuxia movie. It's not like a regular like Kung Fu movie. And that's my point. That's my point of view with this.
No, that's fair. Joe, we saw this movie together. Go ahead, because I feel like you're kind of like the medium between all three of us when it comes to.
Yeah, I really like this movie. I know we went and saw the same movie, but I know we went in there with two different sets of expectations. I feel that your set of expectations, you wanted this to be Marvel's version of Mortal Kombat, pretty much. You wanted it to be the quintessential Kung Fu movie of the Marvel series. And like Mark said, this is more supernatural than that. So I knew going into this that they were going to keep to the same formula. It's an origin story when it comes right down to it. And Marvel has this, I wouldn't really say a lacking ability, but they don't usually nail the first movies out of any of their series.
That's fair.
Kind of stumble their way through it, and then when they get to the sequel, that's when they shine. So I didn't really expect this to be mind-blowing in any type of way. However, I was pleasantly surprised that they told the story the way they did. The drama and the action was felt throughout the entire movie. They did crowbar a lot of the comedy in, so I did kind of feel taken back by it a little bit. Putting Trevor in there for as long as they did. I mean, you can hint towards him. You can even put him in the movie for a little bit, but they dragged it out too long.
Right.
So I did have some certain issues. Some of the stuff they did with the dragon and everything almost felt like they were taking that from Dragon Ball Z, or when he's riding the dragon, I felt like I was watching Neverending Story. So I mean, it was just certain things like that were kind of, you know, not really tough to watch, but it kind of had me scratching my head a little bit. But through and through, I mean, I like the special effects. I have to disagree with you with the special effects. I liked it, although
I'm sorry.
Yeah, me too.
I am kind of, I've settled into what Marvel has done for the last 20 years, so you know, I'm used to their special effects, so I've come to like them, where you're probably looking for a little more, So
I was expecting better, and specifically for those in the chat, I'm talking about like Morris, the pig eagle thing, and then like those lions and the dragons. Like I'm talking about mainly the third act. Like those creatures just did not. It looked like someone. It looked like a YouTuber put those together, and I'm 100% serious when I say that. Like.
So are you saying the atmosphere effects, not the fighting?
I'm talking about like the creature effects. Those creatures looked really, really, really off-putting, and a lot of the movie, you could tell it was green screen. Like a lot of the shots were green screen. It was painfully obvious. And then, like I said, when they engaged in combat, it just looked really tacky. It just looked tacky. It just bothered me. I really wish they put more emphasis on the real hand-to-hand stuff. But like I said, even then, I feel like, again, I have no proof, but I feel like COVID may have affected the staffing, the manpower behind the special effects. I have no proof, but I'm just.
Well, I know it definitely interrupted filming because, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody in the chat or here. I'm pretty sure they started filming in February or March of last year. Then they were shut down for months, and then I don't think they resumed filming until September. Right. And then they finished from there. But I know at the very least from the filming standpoint of things, a lot got interrupted. I wouldn't be surprised that when they went back later. We good?
Yeah, you froze a couple of times.
Okay. So let me try it. So I know between the break between March and September, whatever they filmed beforehand and whatever they filmed in September, and from there was probably more carefully handled in terms of how many people were in shots, how long the shots were going to be in. So from a filming standpoint, that I know at least they were affected in that aspect of the process.
That makes sense. Yeah.
As far as the comic adaptation, the only thing I had an issue with were the rings themselves. Because if you look at the comics, first of all, they were on his fingers, not his.
Yes, they're actual rings. They're actual finger rings.
And secondly, the ring has a different elemental power, whereas this one seemed like they were all the same.
Yeah, and then my big thing, and this is just me being nitpicky. I know that I'm the nitpick king, but he's wearing these things on his wrists. At no point in the film does anybody refer to them as bracelets. Everybody calls them rings, which I find odd. You would think that, I get it's the Legend of the Ten Rings, but you would think maybe if this was a real world situation and you saw somebody with these things on their arms, you'd be like, what's up with those bracelets? Yeah. Nobody says that, and I just found that kind of weird.
Fair enough. Okay, so let's kind of break down the movie from start to finish. Maybe a good place to start, the bus fight.
That was pretty awesome.
Half of it was awesome.
Yeah, that's what I'm with Mark on this one. First and foremost, I was excited. Forgive me, I don't know the actor's name, but he's the one that played Victor Drago in Creed 2. I was excited to see him because I don't think he's been in any other movies besides Creed 2. And again, it's cool that Sylvester Stallone found another Hollywood star in the boxing / athletic community.
His name is Florian Montenu.
Okay.
I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Okay, I will go with that.
Yeah.
I was happy to see him again, and I felt like, all things considering, in the first Creed movie, he considering it was his first acting gig ever, I thought he did a phenomenal job. All things considered, especially who he's in there with, Michael B. Jordan and Dolph Lundgren and Sylvester Stallone, and so on and so forth. So in this movie, I just felt like that he was kind of dumbed down quite a bit. He was just taking orders and saying a couple one-liners here and there. And I feel like it was definitely a step, performance-wise, it was definitely a step down. But when he comes in with the knife and they text him, it was awesome. But once the bus lost control and it was going down the hill, it lost me a little bit. He's swinging outside the bus and it lost me a little bit there. What did you guys think? Overall, what did you guys think of that bus fight? Wild Band, go ahead.
I think I probably enjoyed the bus fight the most, especially the first half before that guy came in. All the combat between Simu Liu and those crooks was just awesome. I will give the humor a little crap for that. Just, hey guys, welcome to my live stream. This guy's kicking some ass on this bus.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. I mean, that would more than likely happen in real life, but you don't need to put it just because it more than likely would happen.
Well,
Right.
actually, to defend it, it did play a factor into the story because remember, once he gets to Hong Kong in the underground fight club,
Yeah,
bus
my
guy.
God,
he's
video.
viral because of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I kind of get it in that story aspect, but like it's like okay, we're having a live streamer.
Yeah, but they could have just had it just once instead of like through the whole entire bus.
Yeah,
Right.
make one joke and not like cut
And-
back to him and have him do additional commentary. I agree.
And correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that the same guy from Spider-Man Homecoming? Hey, you're that Spider guy, you too! I think that's the same guy.
Maybe they're trying to make him like a recurring character in this
that
next
makes
phase.
sense because it's it's New York City and all that, so it could very well.
I thought they were in San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Yeah,
no,
that's
right,
San
it is
Francisco, yeah.
No, I sorry because Aquafina, Nora from Queens. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, it was San Francisco. So yeah, so maybe. Okay, yeah, that's tough. Maybe I don't know.
People go on vacation. Come on.
But I thought the Victor Drago, because I can't remember his actor's name, I thought his sword hand or like his like weapon hand, I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
There were points where it kind of reminded me of the Spider-Man versus Doc Ock on the train fight. And then once they cut the bus in half and they started like crashing into every vehicle on the way down, I thought that was kind of funny. But I think overall, I really liked the bus fight. It's not my favorite fight of the film, but I really did like it.
Right on.
I liked it too. I wish he would have had more attachments than just the sword for his hand.
Yeah, I agree.
But I did like that fight. I'm with you on the whole live stream thing. That was kind of out of place. But I kind of understand why they did it. Other than that, I mean, I enjoyed it personally. I really can't say anything bad about it.
Fair enough, Mark. I know you got your feelings on it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the first half of it is great. Like, I think that, the practical aspects of that fight, when Simu Liu is just really just fighting with the minions of the 10 rings, I thought that part was interesting enough, and it probably could have just ended with that. I think once Razer Fist comes in,
That's his name.
I think that it starts to get a little bit hokey. Like, you know what I mean? Like how his blade hand kind of cuts through the floor and cuts the brake line, and then he's able to sort of slice through like half the bus. I couldn't really suspend my disbelief that far. And I thought that the fight overall was too long. I also felt like, with this haywire bus going kind of out of control and Aquafina like suddenly taking, you know what I mean? Like the bus driver getting knocked out and then she jumps up and takes the wheel and she knows how to drive the bus like she's always been driving it. I was just like, it didn't really work for me, As far as that character though, Razer Fist, I actually like that character a lot. He's like a pretty prominent character in Shang-Chi comics, but he's actually a henchman of Dr. Doom in the comics.
Oh.
He's not. Yeah, he's not. He really has nothing to do with like Shang-Chi's father. I'm not sure why they shoehorned him in to this movie, because I kind of agree with you, Jay. Like the performance was kind of like why is he here? Like, what's he really bringing to the movie? Like, other than the cool hand, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the other side of that coin is that he is a prominent nemesis of Shang-Chi. I just wish that they had given him a little bit more to do.
Yeah, I feel like both him and the guy with the mask were very underutilized.
Yeah, Death Dealer.
Yeah, and the guy with the mask, he had a pointless death, like.
Mm-hmm.
And then I
didn't even know he had a name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that again, Mark grew up in the era of the Shang-Chi comics in the 70s. So
yeah, that's like late 70s, early 80s is when that comic was
that's
big.
Like his
Yeah.
Yeah, MO right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to shimmy to the next big scene of the movie, and I do have a major problem with it. So the underground fight ring in Hong Kong, or wherever they were. The Abomination. Okay. I was bothered. I didn't mind the Abomination being there. I was bothered because they didn't give an explanation. All they had to say was, hey, he escaped from Thunderbolt's Ross prison or something. That's all they had to do was some kind of one-liner explain how he got there. There was no, they just threw him in there. No explanation. Right. But I did like, it was a cool set. I really did enjoy. I'm kind of a sucker for those underground like fight scenes and
yeah,
it was cool. But like, and another thing too is I was kind of low key. I was hoping that Shang-Chi was gonna fight the Abomination.
I feel like they were kind of setting it up like that.
Yeah,
and I was expecting that, and we didn't get that. He fights his sister, which. Whatever. I mean, some that fight was okay. I mean, it was better than. I mean, still doesn't compare to the one I described earlier, but it's better than a lot of the other fights. Well,
it was a shirtless fight scene for the sake of being a shirtless fight scene.
Yeah. But what was more troubling to me in that scene, they don't explain why Wong was there. Like, why was he there?
Now, a lot of fans have pointed this out, and I like to think this too. In the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, we see Wong going into a portal. A lot of people like to think that was him going to the underground arena to fight.
Right. But to me, it would have been much more satisfying storytelling if they would have given us some reason why he was even fighting. Like, whether the Sanctum Sanctorum needed money or, to function, or he could have been saying like, hey, I travel here. I went here because I'm actually looking for the owner of these rings. And I'm like hoping that like I'll run into him. They could have come up with anything, but instead they give you that fight, which in my opinion, pretty cool fight.
Yeah, it was. I'm not gonna knock that.
They don't give you any like backstory for either one of those characters, which kind of irritated.
And what's kind of weird is like at the end of the fight, they're like in the gym locker room, kind of like being a little buddy, and then they both leave together.
Yeah, and they don't explain that. Maybe they'll explain it in like a future movie, but
it's such a missed opportunity though, and it bothered me because again, I'm not a fan of like, oh yeah, let's bring back. Well, I love the character of Abomination. The Incredible Hulk movies, my top
underrated.
Top 3. It's like my top 3 because I'm a sucker for Edward Norton. Tim Roth was amazing. And the fact that the Hulk hasn't been the same ever since. I hate what the MCU has done to one of my favorite characters ever, the Hulk. But it was cool seeing the Abomination. But I just wish he was given an explanation about how he got there, because that's a huge plot hole. Because again, the Hulk choked him out, and he left him there in front of Thunderbolt Ross and the whole military to take care of. So somewhere between there and maybe we'll get an explanation in the what's that show called? The She-Hulk. The She-Hulk.
Right.
Maybe we'll get a She-Hulk explanation, hopefully. But I'm just bothered that they should have given some kind of one quick explanation about the Abomination being there would have been nice. Joe, you've been quiet about this scene. What did you think?
Yeah, Josh Bates has an interesting theory about Wong. It says that he had to make money so he could get his tuna fish sandwich from Infinity.
His tuna melt. Strange stopped buying him lunch. So.
Oh yeah, let me say it for the sake of Wild Band. Let me say it. Paul Tack is in the chat, man. Thanks for coming in.
We got
what's up, Paul? Long time no see.
I know with Shang-Chi specific, like maybe a couple movies after this, they're doing a experiment with this release. It's going to be in theaters for 45 days, and after that 45 days, it's going to go to Disney Plus for free.
I think
no premium access.
Warner Brothers is doing the same thing in 2022. I like the idea of a 45-day window because I feel like. If you haven't seen a movie within 30 days, like I feel like I'd even be okay with a 30-day window because I feel like most movies make their money with the exception of Endgame because that was a long ride. I feel like most movies make the most of their money in those first 4 weeks. So I think a 45-day window is very generous, and I'm fine with that moving forward because I usually see a movie either opening night or within a week or two. So
same.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Joe, but Joe, what did you think of that whole entire scenario that we were just talking about?
I'm with you guys. I was expecting Shang-Chi to fight him, but the fight itself was okay. I wasn't really thrilled or, taken back by it or anything. It is what it is,
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I could have seen more fighters, to be honest, because you only got a small showcase of what was in there. They could have thrown anybody in there, really.
Yeah.
So it didn't really last long enough for me.
And apparently, in one of those little pre-fight cages, you saw somebody with the extremist virus fighting a Black Widow.
Yeah. I forgot all about that, but yeah, that was pretty interesting.
Oh, I didn't even catch. I mean, I didn't catch the Black Widow reference. So yeah, wow.
Yeah, it was there was the extremist and the Black Widow in the same cage, and if you look really closely when she goes to kick the guy, you see the Black Widow emblem on her belt.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Pretty cool.
Good call.
And I mean, if they didn't have so many contract issues and ownership all over the place with the comics and everything, it would have been kind of cool to see. Because this is after Endgame, but is it in the realm of X-Men at all? Like when it comes to timeline wise?
Well, I mean, the X-Men haven't been introduced yet.
Right,
so.
yes. I think the director said Shang-Chi takes place in present day MCU.
Yeah. There was a reference saying, hey, I think Aquafina said we all can lose our life and half a life can be wiped out in a second.
Right.
So they made that reference. So the reference was that it was after Endgame, because they made the reference saying, hey, life can end in just a snap, or half a life could end in just a snap. We've seen it.
Well, the point I was trying to make is it would have been kind of cool to see some sort of reference to Logan somewhere, because he used to do cage fighting.
True.
Right.
True.
That would have been a nice callback to the first X-Men movie, which really started everything.
Yeah.
There were other superhero movies, but that's the one that really
was hanging somewhere or something.
Yeah. That would have been cool.
By the way, hey Scott, it's good to see you, buddy. Hopefully we're not spoiling the movie for you.
Oh, has Scott not seen it?
I don't know. I'm assuming Scott hasn't seen it, so I'm just saying. Yeah, this is a spoiler discussion. If you reading the description. So yeah, all right. So Mark, where should we shimmy to now? We went from the bus, we went from the underground club. Where do you want to discuss next?
Man, I had something I wanted to say, and then now I don't remember. You know what I mean? I think.
Okay, I got some things to add. Right after, so again, leading up to what was my favorite fight, which was great, by the way, when they're trying to escape from the building, they're being chased and all that. Which was like I said, it was a cool scene. But another scene that really bothered me too, the bamboo, and here's why.
Okay.
Let me explain why. And again, I'm my old school martial arts movies are kicking in. I thought when they were fighting on the bamboo sticks, it looked really off, because if you remember, Rush Hour 2.
I was thinking the same thing when that scene
Rush
popped
Hour
up.
2 bamboo scene was bloody amazing. They could have ripped the page right off of that and used some real stuntmen for that scene, but no, they went the CGI route and it looked really off-putting.
And then when freaking Aquafina was
it's unfair though. I mean, because the Rush Hour movies have Jackie Chan and Jackie Chan's stunt team. And those guys are absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So I imagine that Marvel didn't have anybody that was willing to take those kind of chances. Do you know what I mean?
Because what we saw in Rush Hour 2 was a real, an actual set piece scene, where in this movie, clearly it was a green screen.
Yeah. No, I'll give you that. I will give you that.
It bothered me because I'm like, oh man, Rush Hour 2 came out exactly 20 years ago and did that much better.
Yeah, when freaking Aquafina was hanging off the freaking bamboo branch, my mind went to, don't worry, bamboo very strong. Well, that bamboo is cracking.
Yeah. And we haven't really talked enough about Aquafina. I mean, I did talk about the friendship thing.
Sure.
The one thing I do appreciate about Aquafina, again, I really feel like she's got a comedy background. They made her use her jokes. But here's the thing I appreciate is that she was the audience, meaning she was the fish out of the water, going along with the ride with Shang-Chi. Mm-hmm. She's us. Like, oh my god, where are we going? Oh my god, this is crazy. But the fact that she's never touched a weapon in her life, and she's the one with the bow and arrow that...
Right.
Come on, man. But other than that, I felt like, yes, she was the comedy relief, but I appreciate the fact that she was the audience, and she was the one along for the ride. And I felt like her character... I hate to say this. This is me admitting. Her execution of her being the audience was done a lot better with her than it was with Cole in Mortal Kombat.
Yes. I will co-sign on that statement for sure.
There you go. There's me admitting. But that being said, I didn't like that, that she was the one that was able to use the bone when she hasn't touched a weapon in her life, and that kind of bugged me.
Yeah, and I can definitely agree with that. I could see where like that would make sense. I've been like looking on because it's an original character. Like that character, as far as the MCU is concerned, they didn't like pull that character out of any comic. Mm-hmm. Like they just created her for this film. I've seen online where a lot of people are comparing her to the character Apex from the comics, which has this like sharpshooting ability. At least a version of her has that. Mm-hmm. And so that makes me wonder if that's who they're sort of morphing her into. Is that like maybe she has some sort of latent ability which allows her to like hit targets perfectly. And maybe she just never knew that. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But since I've seen that online, like in forums and stuff, people kind of talking about that, I'm like, well, maybe that's what it is. Because why else would Wong be like, both of you, like your lives are going to change like forever? Well, why would you need her? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm going to make the assumption too, again, going back to Rush Hour. So from Rush Hour 1 to Rush Hour 2, Rush Hour 1, Jackie was kind of carrying and protecting Chris Tucker from the onslaught. When they got into those fights. Then in Rush Hour 2, when they're specifically when they're in the spa, Chris Tucker could fight because Jackie taught him.
Was showing him, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming, and I'm hoping they go in this direction because it would make sense that going from Shang-Chi, if there's another Shang-Chi, or if we see, Katie and Shang again, assuming we see them again, maybe this time she's gonna have some kind of fighting skills or something that she's gonna learn. Her character's gonna progress. And she's not gonna be like the friend that's in the way. She's gonna learn like a thing or two.
Right, and in a little bit of defense of that aspect, I know I'm like defending this movie a whole lot, but I feel like I'm the only one that really dug it. So, that's fine. Like in defense of that particular characteristic, they were kind of training her, right? They were like teaching her how to use like the bow and arrow and like hit targets and stuff like that. They even said to her, like when she went to try to go into battle, like, you're not ready to do this. So like part of me kind of feels like A, the shots that she was taking were kind of lucky shots, and B, these people are training like it's not traditional training. Like they have this ability that is endowed to them by the Great Protector, right? This god-like dragon. So maybe part of that is an aiming ability, and maybe they've like shown her how to tap into that. I don't know. This is all speculation, but like that's kind of like what I'm saying. Like maybe that's something that'll be explained later.
Yeah, Paul Taggart wants to know if she could be a member of the Hand.
Oh, that is an interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
Okay.
Real quick though, since we're multi-streaming, I see from Facebook, Grace is in the chat. Thank you for coming in. I haven't talked to you in a while. And from Twitch, we have Baxter Tools streaming us on Twitch. So thank you. We invented the multiverse. Multidimensional. So yeah, I just want to welcome the people. So listen, if you're on Facebook, And if you're not subscribed to NerdCage Live, please go to YouTube and subscribe. Same with Twitch. Subscribe on Twitch. Subscribe on YouTube. We really appreciate hoping these multi-stream simulcast streams will get people to sub up. Go to YouTube and sub us up. But thank you for coming in. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and of course hopefully we're not spoiling the movie for you. Hopefully you guys have all seen it already. But yeah,
that's what's up, man. And guys, again, if you have any opinion, point of view, question, hit us up in the chat. Let us know. For sure.
Sorry, go ahead.
Paul's got a question for Mark. He said, "Did you see Paper Tigers?"
I have not seen Paper Tigers. I've heard nothing but good things about it, though. It's on my list to see, but I just haven't quite gotten around to it. Right now, I'm watching. I'm trying to get through a show called Brand New Cherry Flavor. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about that. It's a very weird kind of supernatural kind of TV show. But I'm about halfway through that, and then I'm gonna do Paper Tigers after that.
Very nice. So one quick comment on training. So we see the mom and both the aunt train Shang-Chi, and there are technically three specific points where we see the mom, we see the aunt, and then near the end, we see Shang-Chi basically airbending. They were 100% airbending.
That was
yeah. It was done right.
That's funny.
And I was like, okay, well, Netflix, take notes. That's how you do proper airbending in live action.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get that in this, or are they still doing the live action Avatar?
Yes. At the current moment, we have the main four kids, Aang, Katara, Sokka, and Zuko cast, which Zuko was actually, the actor was in Shang-Chi. He was Katie's younger brother at the very beginning of the movie.
Gotcha. Cool.
Excellent. So let's talk, since we just talked about the end, I just want to gush over Michelle Yeoh. First and foremost, she still looks beautiful. She still looks fantastic, and her
100.
Yes, her martial arts skills clearly haven't diminished. I'm sure she's not going. She's definitely not going as hard as she did 20, 30 years ago.
No,
but she's still doing it, and she's doing it well.
She's not jumping any motorcycles on any speeding trains, but she's still badass.
Yes, and I was happy to see her. I thought she was one of the highlights of the movie. It was just a damn shame we didn't really get her to the third act. It's just. I mean, I understand why, but I've always been a fan of her work, and I just wish there was more of her.
Yeah, I really hope that going forward that we get more of her, like in the MCU, like in future Shang-Chi movies, or if there's any crossover where Shang-Chi's in another movie, that we also get Michelle Yeoh. I mean, to me, and it's, I admit I'm super biased. Like, I'm a Michelle Yeoh super fan, and I have been for 25 years. Like she was the best part of the movie, and I really wish that I'm with you, man. I wish that she was in it a whole lot more than she was.
I wouldn't be surprised if we get a sequel or more appearances from Shang-Chi in future movies. Like, she would be his mentor character, since she kind of started doing that at near the end when they went to the village.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know what else there's left to cover. I mean, we've gone for close to an hour here. So guys, anything else you want to cover? Because I'm out of ideas. I mean, the post-credit scenes, but before we get to the final act and the post-credit scenes, is there anything else you guys want to go back and discuss?
I wanted to I didn't get a chance to kind of weigh in on the whole Trevor thing.
Okay,
so
that's good, good, perfect. Let's talk about Trevor, because I have a fucking problem with it, and so does Wild Bit. Go ahead.
Right. Now, I will say this. I think that he was in the movie way too much. But I like the fact that Tony Leung's character, I think his name in the movie is Ren-Wo. I could be wrong on that.
Wen-Wu.
Okay. I knew it was something like that, but I just didn't have the pronunciation down. Anyway, I loved that they had that conversation where he addressed that the 10 rings from Iron Man 1 was not his 10 rings, and that he explained that this terrorist organization co-opted this thing that he had built, and that they hired this guy to, you know what I mean, to like basically be like a fake version of him. And I really loved that they addressed the name of the Mandarin, right? Because that has always bothered me, even as like a comic book fan. I've always felt like it was a little bit reductive, right? Because
Mark, I don't mean to interrupt, but is it? I was talking to someone. So one person at my job did see it too. We were talking about it, and he was bothered at the fact that the Mandarin in the comics never had kids, and that was never part of the Shang-Chi
right
storyline.
And right in the comics, Shang-Chi is the son of Fu Manchu. He's not the son of like Ren Wu or the Mandarin. They've like changed that aspect of it greatly.
Understandably so.
Understandably so, right? But what I liked about that particular scene was that they took a moment to kind of explain and clarify for everybody that like the people who abducted Tony Stark, that got this whole ball in motion, had nothing to do with him. They just like, and they had no understanding of like what he had built. I also liked that they addressed the Marvel one shot, which I'm assuming at least some people out there have watched, right? Because in that, Trevor is basically in prison, and the Mandarin finds out about him and wants to kill him. But at the end of that, he's just basically like abducted. Like they break him out, you know what I mean? And you don't know what happened. At least you get to see like, okay, this is what happened to him. It would have been better if it just ended right there. If they just
I
done a quick
prefer him not being in there at all.
Right.
But if anything, like you said, maybe just have him there and that's it, because they definitely dragged that out way too long and it bothered me.
I agree.
Right.
Yeah,
like if they
he really didn't need to be the comic relief in that. Like they really didn't need him for that.
Yeah, they just like broke into his room. They're like, oh, like, and then he did a little explanation, and then they left without him. Fine, if you're gonna include him, just do that.
I hated him in Iron Man 3. That was one of the
I think everybody did. Now, shout out to Ben Kingsley though, because great actor.
Yeah,
great actor. But the character was incredibly disappointing. Like, it's not even that the character, it like on its face is a bad character. It's the fact that like we had been like led to believe that we were going to see the Mandarin from the comics.
We were going to get the
whole
magic
time.
versus technology.
Yeah, Iron Man v. Mandarin.
We never got that
since Iron Man 1, and we never got it. And it's a damn shame we're never going to get it.
We're never going to get it, right? And that's where I think a lot of people's ire comes from. But I think that Ben Kingsley, who's one of the greatest actors of all time, in my personal opinion, and who I think, like, if they do an X-Men, I feel like it should be Ben Kingsley. But that aside, I think, like, for the material, like what they gave him, he did like a good job with it. It's just the character itself was not written very well. Like they should have just done a quick cameo and then that's it. Yeah.
Yes, it bothered me because just like I said, the second act, just when I was beginning to enjoy it, out of nowhere they threw him in there, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, don't you guys want to distance yourself from Iron Man 3? And they didn't do that. But that's just my thing. Go ahead, Wild Man. I know you got some stuff to say.
Yeah, I was like, when we started hearing that, oh, like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And then when we went, not even when he turned around, when we got into the room, I was like, oh, no.
And honestly, I was kind of caught with my pants down because I didn't know. I didn't know he was in the movie. Like, maybe other people did. Maybe it was on IMDb. I didn't know. I honestly went in the movie and I was shocked. And I looked over at Joe. I'm like, is that the Mandarin from Iron Man 3? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh my God, why?
Yeah, the only reason people knew was because he was at the premiere, and that's where they technically revealed that he was in the movie.
I didn't know. I was not aware.
Yeah, they kept it quiet.
I was caught way off guard, and I'm like, no. And it just deflated me. Like, and again, it was at the point of the movie where I was really beginning to really enjoy it. Because, you know, it was the second act of the movie. They kind of toned down the jokes and the obnoxious jokes. And then, like, the movie started getting good and getting more intense. And then all of a sudden they threw him in there and it just took me right out of it.
I did like the joke they had when they explained the Mandarin versus, like, America as a whole. And they were like, America can be brought down by an orange.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying, is that like he kind of at least addressed the name, which even like as a comic book reader, I always felt that was incredibly reductive of Asian culture. Because like when we're talking about like we're talking about an orange, we're talking about like Chinese food, like Mandarin chicken,
Yes.
or we're talking about Mandarin as a language, right? So like if someone calls themselves the Mandarin, it's like the Mandarin what? You know, I never really understood why like that was ever chosen as the villain's name, except like that the only thing it really does is highlight like whoever created that character. Maybe, I don't know if it was Jack Kirby or whoever, like whoever created that character, like it just sort of highlights like a lack of understanding of like Asian culture, like Chinese culture.
Yeah.
And like, so I'm glad that they at least addressed that and kind of rounded that out. Like, hey, like I never called myself the Mandarin. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's not a real thing.
Yeah, I mean, from Iron Man movie, it was off-putting because it's like, okay, a guy that's named after a Chinese language heading up a group in Afghanistan.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I guess let's get to the third act real quick. So Mandarin and I had a problem with Morris. I hate the CGI, but it was Trevor and Morris.
The chicken pig.
Guided them to the Sacred Land, you know, where Michelle Yeoh was from and all that. And I was kind of like excited, you know, like, all right, this sacred Asian realm. I'm really excited to see it. But then he had all these ridiculous lions and other weird creatures, and it just looked so damn bad. And
yeah, I agree.
Even what bothered me too, besides that, like the weapons, like when they were using the rope dart, it wasn't a real rope dart; it was a CGI rope dart.
CGI.
They're using the bone arrows; they're CGI arrows, like. And then they're using like other weapons, and they're all like CGI. Like everything was CGI. That whole third act was CGI, and it just looked so off-putting. It drove me nuts. And then the third act kind of dragged on. Like, yeah, we got one brief little fight between Shang and Tony. You know, the real Mandarin, Tony Luang, and which was cool, but it was so brief. And then it's just him trying to pound on the dragon scale, and like, oh, what a disappointing third act. I really wanted to see more of a bigger showdown. I mean, we got a little bit of it, but I was expecting a bigger showdown. And it's just like the whole third act just felt so flat for me, with the exception of Michelle Yeoh training Shang, which was fantastic. Again, one of the highlights of the real martial arts that we got in the movie. But like the overall third act between all the CGI and the pounding on the door, and it just felt like it just dragged on, and it just really took me out of it. That's my 2 cents. Guys, go ahead and chime in.
Am I the only one who thought like low key thought that it was Mephisto behind
Yes, I was thinking the
blast?
same thing. It was like Soul Eater, like.
Yeah, and then they showed those like little statuettes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and it kind of looked devilish, and I was like, "It's Mephisto behind there, dude!" Like, and I was like kind of excited, like inside, like kind of excited. You know what I mean? It didn't ruin the movie, but then afterwards, you're just like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, no, I legit thought the same thing. Like, could they actually do it? No, okay.
It would have been a million times better if they did.
Yeah. I will say for the final battle, I personally, I took a little bit of martial arts when I was in elementary school, and my favorite thing to use was the bow staff. So to see Shang-Chi like kicking ass with the dragon scale bow staff was kind of awesome to me, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm probably the minority in this group because I
know. Go ahead, Joe.
I've always loved CGI. Personally, I just want to see how far. I always go into a movie seeing how far can they push this. You know, how far has technology come to where we can push these computer-generated graphics as far as we can go. So I was pleasantly surprised with it, but I understand that you grew up more on, you know, the wire-based fighting and, you know, all the practical effects.
Yeah. I'm just old school like that, but it doesn't kill the movie for me. Like I have sort of a motto with that. Not really a motto, but just sort of like a creed with that, because The thing about CGI is that it's always going to advance, always. So even the CGI that we think is amazing now, 10 years from now, when we look back, when you and I do a look back on like one of these movies that has great CGI, we're going to like comment on how the CGI doesn't hold up.
Okay,
right?
I'm glad
but the movie itself, like as long as the stories are good, like the story and the acting, that to me is what makes a movie.
Yes,
so like
I don't agree.
Yeah, I don't discount a film if the CGI is like, unless it's absolutely horrendous.
But
like,
that's
you know
the
what I
thing.
mean?
To me, it looked absolutely horrendous. And it looked like a YouTuber put it together. I just thought, given it's the MCU, given, again, I'm going to think, I really do think COVID had a factor, but still, given it's an MCU movie and given that their special effects for the most part, not all of them, but for the most part, have been pretty spectacular, and this just missed the mark for me.
Sure.
But Mark, just to tag on real quick with what you just said, and then we'll move on.
Sure.
You know how you just said, well, we could look at 5 years from now, and the CGI could be awesome, but look shit from now. I'm glad you kind of mentioned it, because as big as a DCU fanboy I am, okay, for the longest time, when Aquaman first came out, I love Aquaman, the movie.
Right.
But upon a recent rewatch of Aquaman, I feel like the CGI is already aged. This is my opinion.
This is what I'm saying, yeah.
And hold on, let me finish. So, like, on top of that, and for a few years too, I was so blown away by Aquaman. I actually liked Aquaman more than Man of Steel, which gives us my next point. At the time when Aquaman did come out, the special effects I thought were miles better than the special effects in Man of Steel. But now, for a recent rewatch, I rewatched all the DC movies kind of recently. The special effects in Man of Steel have aged way better than the special effects in CGI in Aquaman.
I think I can agree with that. I do. I can't like look back and like, you know, this still looks good for like 8 years old.
Yeah,
because it was just at the time that groundbreaking CGI that James Wan managed to put in. And again, I'm sure Aquaman 2, when it comes out next year, is going to look even better. But at the time, when Aquaman first came out, I was blown away. And I'm like, wow, this is really like the best CGI I've seen in a DC movie. And now, upon a rewatch of Man of Steel, because I was getting ready for the Snyder Cut, and I rewatched Man of Steel and so on and so forth, and I'm like, wow, Man of Steel has aged better than a lot of movies. And it Aquaman.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, as much as I'm not going to say that I dislike Man of Steel. Like, when I first saw it, I hated it. But my appreciation has grown for that movie. That, like, I've watched it several times since it was released. And every time I watch it now, like, I like it a little bit more. One of the things that I do like about that is that I do feel like the CGI in that movie is underappreciated. Yeah. Like, Henry Cavill's cape, the whole thing, it's CGI. It's not a real cape. Right. Yep. But nobody ever remarks on that. No one ever, like, you know, like, talks about like how realistic that looks and how, like, even now, like, you know, when did that movie come out? 2014.
Man of Steel was 2013.
Yeah,
2013. So 8 years later, it still holds up. You know,
I think Zack Snyder's choice of color palette helps because
the darker the better.
Because Aquaman was a very bright and vibrant movie.
Yes.
And then you watch Man of Steel and the Snyder Cut. It's got that, you know, that darker tone that people bitch about, but it works because I feel like the dark color palette tones down the CGI that really, like, stands out.
I think I can agree with that.
That's all.
I'm with you.
What we're getting at here is, like I said, the CGI in this movie does not look good, but maybe years down, like what Mark said, maybe years down the road it will look better. But the whole third act to me it just looked really, really off. I guess you want to go to the ending and post-credit scenes?
Yes. Sure.
Okay, so the ending in particular, again, I actually did like the ending where, again, just a recap. They go back to the bar with their friends, and they're like making fun of them. They don't believe them, and then Wong comes out of nowhere, and again, I'm reiterating. I appreciate the fact. So then when the portal opens and then Shang and Katie go into the portal, and again, they stayed friends. Okay, I like that. They stayed friends. And I also like the fact, another thing I forgot to reiterate, I like the fact that Shang was he was hiding in San Francisco working a basic job to hide from his dad. I actually really liked that. I thought it was cool that he went hiding for 10 years, not revealing who he was, and staying low-key. Really, really, really enjoyed that. So, the post-credit scene, the first one. Okay, I do have a problem with it.
Okay.
I think I might do as well.
Here we go.
I'm not a fan of Brie Larson, and her appearance...
I knew it.
Hold on. Her appearance was pointless. Pointless. Because she's like, oh, Bruce has my number, get at me. And then she disappeared. Well, what was the point of you being there, Brie Larson?
Two things.
Get him, Wild Man.
Two things why. So first reason, maybe to help somewhat set up Miss Marvel and then the Marvels. Second reason, the director and Brie Larson are really good friends and have worked on a couple projects together. So it kind of makes sense that she would make a small cameo as Carol Danvers. Now, me personally, when I saw both Mark Ruffalo and Brie Larson, I was like, oh shit, what are they setting up? They're not really setting up anything. Okay.
I think there was a third reason. I think it was to shut down the rumor mill, because everybody's rumoring that they're getting rid of Brie Larson. Well, this confirms they're not.
Yeah, right. And a fourth reason is that I believe, because in the comics, Shang-Chi is an Avenger, right?
And I think they have confirmed that he is now a new Avenger post-release.
Exactly. I think this was their way of letting the audience know that he's about to become an Avenger. Well, who's left in the Avengers? A bunch of them have died already, and you know what I mean. And so, who do you have left? Like you have Captain Marvel. And you have, who do you have? Captain Marvel,
War Machine, Hulk. Technically Spider-Man, because Tony made him an Avenger.
Right.
So Spider-Man, War Machine, Captain Marvel, Hulk.
Thor's still there.
Thor is still around.
Right.
Hawkeye, he's still around.
Right. But, timeline, if we look at like the timeline and stuff like that, like, all these characters have their own things going on, and that's probably all happening all at the same time. So who would be free? Captain Marvel and the Hulk. You know what I mean? So that's probably why they chose those two, because Thor's probably off-world, right? Because at the end of Endgame, he takes off with the Guardians, so he's not even on Earth, right? Spider-Man, as we don't know the timeline necessarily.
Right, we're assuming he's still fugitive because he got out by Mysterio.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say more than likely, and we'll probably get clarification once Shang-Chi releases on Disney Plus and they update the Marvel timeline on the Disney Plus thing. We'll see where those two movies in particular falls. I want to say, my guess right now is Shang-Chi is probably either right before, during, or after Spider-Man, because we know Spider-Man is going to take place right after Far From Home, and we know that takes place like somewhat in the present day of the MCU. So it'll be interesting to see how they order these two, how they order these two in particular.
Right. And I thought about this too during that post-credit scene. Like, where was Doctor Strange throughout this whole thing? Like, that's what I'm getting at, is that like maybe the events of No Way Home are already
madness.
They're already, yeah, exactly. Maybe those events are already in motion at that time, and Wong is at the sanctum by himself. You know what I mean? Yeah. Which would explain, like, okay, like he's brought these two there. There's only a couple of Avengers left that are available at the moment. You know what I mean? Armory Wars is coming out on Disney Plus, which involves War Machine. Maybe the events of Armory Wars are what's keeping him from being there. So that's all I'm saying, is that like I feel like that was just their way of letting you know, like, hey, these guys are about to be inducted into the Avengers, and that's what that whole meeting was about.
Yeah, I know. Can we just be frank? There's been better post-credit scenes, and
oh yeah,
yes,
and between this and Black Widow, we've been like really
let down big time. Yeah.
Because okay, I'll give the Black Widow post-credit scene this. They at least like concretely set up a plot point for a future project. They set up like Yelena appearing in Hawkeye. With the both post-credit scenes of Shang-Chi. Okay, we got 2 appearances from Avengers, seemingly making Shang-Chi an Avenger himself. What else are you guys setting up? And then with the second post-credit scene with his sister taking over the 10 rings, and then it says the 10 rings will return. Okay, cool. We're getting like these guys were going to come back soon. But again, neither post-credit scene really set up anything.
Yeah, like, no, you're right.
Like here's a tease for this, or here's a name drop. We didn't really get much.
Yes.
Right. I agree with that.
Okay, fair enough. Joe, any thoughts on?
I basically agree with you guys, but I do see a lot of stuff in the chat right now, a lot of good points and stuff about what we've been talking about.
Yeah, I feel like we've been ignoring the chat. And guys, I apologize if you've been dropping comments. We need to get out.
Deep in this conversation. we lose track of things, and you know.
Yeah, if I want to go back here,
go ahead, Joe. Go ahead and go back.
Tackett wanted to know about whether you guys saw What If. I know firsthand you guys have stuff on Instagram talking about it. So he was wondering if you saw the Doctor Strange episode.
Yes, that is up on both Instagram and TikTok.
Yes, I was just going to say it's on our
definitely check those out. Yeah, we just dropped that. We just dropped the Doctor Strange episode yesterday, like last night. So yeah, that's on TikTok, Instagram, Paul. Just check those out, and then hit me up and let me know like what you think. You know, like drop your opinion in the comments.
And then I'll move on to Josh Bates. He says, check out 2002's Hero that stars Jet Li, Tony Leung, and Donnie Yen.
My man. That is a great movie, like highly underrated. You know what I mean? Like as far as like Jet Li's movies.
And we can do a look back next year because it turns 20 next year. So we have.
Yeah, that's one I think we should do. Like we should definitely talk about that one.
We'll do that next year. Okay, so I guess we can go around a circle and give our over. I mean, Mark and I already did on TikTok, but let's go ahead and go to the circle and give an overall rating. So, Wildman, what out of 10, what would you give Shang-Chi and the Legend of the 10 Rings?
I think I would give it a 6.75 out of 10. The only thing that is keeping it from only things that are keeping it from like a little bit higher was Trevor. The somewhat disappointing post-credit scenes, even though they were so cool, again, they really didn't set up anything. And the fact that I feel like this movie was overhyped for me, so I came out a little bit more disappointed than I expected. I did like this movie, but I didn't like it as much as I thought I was gonna do. Thought I was gonna like it. I loved Simu Liu as Shang-Chi. I love the fight choreography in this, but if we were just like, if Trevor was either only in it for one scene or not even in it at all, and like we got either like a name drop or like a true tease for a future project in the post-credit scenes, I would easily give this like a 7 to an 8 out of 10. But I give this like a 6 3/4 out of 10.
Well said. Mark, go ahead.
So yeah, both in my initial out of the theater review and on a rapid review, I gave this an 8.5. I'm on the fence about whether or not I should drop half a point, and it's only because now that I've had time to digest it, I see a lot more logic problems in the story. I still think the story was great, and I think that it was executed, extremely well, except for like a couple of, like there are a few things that I didn't like in it, but I think that the performances, particularly Tony Leung, was awesome in it. I think that Simu Liu was a perfect Shang-Chi. Mm-hmm. I think that his acting, like particularly like in the quieter moments, was better than a lot of like the bigger MCU stars. Like there's a scene where he's talking to Awkwafina's character and he's like talking about how he's planning to kill his dad. And there's like a little subtle like half tear that almost falls and you see him pull it back, which is a very difficult thing to do for an actor. And I felt like that, like, little quiet, subtle moments like that to me are stellar. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so the fact that he was able to just throw those in and not just be like your typical like Marvel action guy, like that says a lot to me.
Yeah.
You know, and Michelle Yeoh in it, like I've already said several times, like how much I love her in everything.
Yes.
So yeah, that to me, like that combination of things, that confluence of positive and negatives makes it for me like not quite a perfect movie, but I'd say like an 8, you know, like an 8.5, somewhere in that realm.
Well said. Again, I'm just to read what we Mark and I did our rapid review on TikTok. I'm giving it a 5.5. Again, real quick, similar to what Wild Band said, but for me, too many jokes in the first act. Overall, bad CGI. The CGI fights, with the selection of a couple highlight fights, a lot of the fights I thought looked pretty poor to me. And of course, Trevor being in there in the second act really deflated me. So that being said, I do think it's way better than Black Widow. I'd put this above Guardians, because I'm not a fan of the Guardians, but I'd put it above Guardians, I'd put it above Ant-Man, I'd put it above Dark World, I'd put it above Captain Marvel, and a lot of other Marvel movies. But to me, tack on what Wild Band said, it was overhyped, and I'm blaming John Campea and a few other of these early reviews. I just expected more real martial arts, and I feel like we didn't get enough of that. With some great performances in there overall, I just think it was overall pretty disappointing for the most part. 5.5 out of 10. Not in my top 5 worst movies of 2021, but definitely not my top 10 best movies of 2021 either. It was just
right.
It was an overall letdown. But you know, again, I'm not gonna knock people who like it. I gave my legitimate reasons, like I said.
Yeah, film is subjective, so
yeah, I just wanted to point out, like, hey, I'm not hating it just to hate it. Here's why I hate it. But that's all. So 5.5 out of 10. It could have been better. I think we all agree in some aspects it could have been better. Joe, go ahead.
I agree.
I'm going to give it a solid 7 out of 10. It met my expectations. It didn't exceed them. It didn't go below them. It met exactly what I was expecting out of this movie. I got. So it got me at face value, and I'm going to give it that relative score based on it met what I wanted.
All right, and then what would everybody else read? But hey, shout out in the chat there, Grace chiming in from Facebook. She said, I'd give it an 8. I really liked it. The acting was good. Loved the fighting. Well, thank you. So if anybody else wants to go ahead and chime in and give us their rating, anyone who's actually listening to the podcast version, which will go up on, you know, our podcast the next day or two, what did you think of this movie? You know, what would you rate it? And yeah, and what are you excited for? What are you excited for Eternals? Would you want to see this movie again? How would you rank this among the other MCU movies? And what would you rank this among your 2021 movies? We would love to know.
Speaking of Eternals really quick, I'll see it, but I'm not excited for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, my excitement is down here. For the sake of the channel, I will go see it opening night for the sake of the channel, but I'm not excited for it. But Spider-Man, on the other hand, like, let's go.
I can't wait!
I'm excited for both. You know, like I definitely understand like people not being hyped for Eternals. Like, you know, it wasn't a super popular comic book title, but I think that, you know, with this sort of like giving us finally like the Eternals and the Deviants and the Celestials and all the story, all the lore that goes along with that from the comic, if that's executed properly, I think that that's going to add a whole new layer to the MCU. They're also going to be introducing Black Knight, who is another Avenger, you know, so I think that, you know, the trailers have not necessarily done it justice, but I think that we're probably going to, you know, with that cast and with Chloe Zhao directing, I think it's going to be like a huge movie. And it seems to me like, just from what, you know, just from how Kevin Feige has been throwing all of his energy around promoting that movie, that they're putting all of their eggs in that basket in terms of production, in terms of CGI, action, everything. They're really doing as much as they can with that to make that like sort of like the best MCU movie. So hopefully they deliver on that.
Okay, this was a good segue to a question that Shay had earlier that I wanted to address, and I'm going to kind of paraphrase what he was saying. He wanted to know, like, going forward with the MCU, what new characters that we haven't seen yet would you like to see brought to the MCU? I would go further and ask, what projects would you like to see the MCU do in the future too?
Ooh. That's a good question.
I mean, I can lead out on it. I want to see them do something with Ironheart. To be perfect.
Well, they are.
They
getting
are.
Ironheart
Yeah.
series. And,
She's going to be in Black Panther 2.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. So are we talking about like characters that have not been announced, like that they like where they don't have projects in the works?
Yeah, characters or team ups like Avengers, stuff like that. Anything that hasn't been showcased yet. In the MCU.
Man, I've got so many. Like I want to see Ghost Rider in the MCU more than anything. Like I want to see Ghost Rider. I want to see the Punisher in there. I want to see Star Fox, one of the Avengers from the 80s. I would love to see, like, in terms of like team ups and stuff like that. Like I know they haven't introduced mutants, and at some point they will. But when they do, I want to see. I don't necessarily need to see the X-Men so much, but I would love to see X-Force. I would love to see like those characters.
X-Force!
Like, yeah. You know, Excalibur. I'd love to see Captain Britain. There's a ton, or Alpha Flight even. Like I would love to see like Vindicator and like Sasquatch and those characters that don't get talked about a lot but are absolutely amazing characters. I want to see the MCU do more with that as opposed to like rehashing like characters that we've all seen and all that.
I was interested in that whole Midnight Suns thing that I saw in video games and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That would be cool to adapt to like a series, film, or something.
I think for me, I would really love to see Spider-Man and Deadpool team up because that's such a huge thing in the comics.
I want to see more of the dark heroes. Like I want to see Blade, Punisher, and
Blade's coming soon.
Ghost Rider. So
right.
And I want to see like the darker heroes, even especially hopefully I don't think it's R-rated, but still I'd like to see some of these dark. Again, being a DC guy, I want to see some of the darker elements of Marvel, and Punisher and Ghost Rider would be absolutely like fantastic.
Yeah, dark hero team up would be amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if they did like the Marvel Knights or something like that, like, you know, some of those characters would be. I think that would, again, like, I agree with Jay, like in terms of like the MCU now having this sort of paint by numbers formula, it's working for them. You know, in terms of like making these films 4-quadrant, but it'd be nice if they had like some aspect of the MCU that was transcendent of that, where it was more, you know, like darker, like more,
gritty.
Not necessarily gritty, more like horror based almost. Yeah. Like, you know, stuff that's more supernatural, stuff that's like darker and like not necessarily scarier, but you know what I mean.
Moon Knight. I am a little hyped for that.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, the first thing that came to my mind was Moon Knight, because that's like a darker comic from Marvel.
Yes,
so
I agree.
We'll have to see how that goes. All right, so we got to wrap this up. I have to jump on Titan Goji's Gundam stream pretty soon here. So, again, thanks to everyone who came in on Facebook, Twitch, and on YouTube. We appreciate it. Dude, I love doing this multi-stream. But Wild Band, I'm going to give you the floor. Go ahead and promote anything you want to promote.
All right, so you can find me on YouTube, Wild Band. At the moment, I'm currently reacting to What If, and then I'm doing the episodic What If reviews with Mark on TikTok and Instagram. I react to the classic Godzilla, the series based off the 98 movie with Brian from Monstrosities. Also I'm reacting to Neon Genesis Evangelion with Brian from Monstrosities on Fridays. I'm starting to do gaming again on my channel. I'm currently on my playthrough of Life is Strange 2 right before the new Life is Strange 2 Colors comes out this coming September 10th. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all under some sort of like Wild Man Gaming. I'm on Twitch, WildGamer23. I haven't touched that in a bit, but I'm trying to get back into it. I'm currently editing for a few other channels. I'm making my appearances here on NerdCage as always. And I'm just having fun doing what I'm doing.
We love having you here, man. So thank you for, for what you do for us. We always appreciate your help. Mark, anything you want to plug before we go?
So once again, I mean, if you haven't yet joined the NerdCage Live discussion group on Facebook, you know, it's a great place for us nerds to just be nerds. It's not just about the channel itself or about the shows. We invite other content creators to come and drop their content. It's a place for us to actually have discussions about nerd culture, about what's happening in the movie industry and comics and cartoons and all that good stuff. So drop by, give us a follow. We're also on Instagram and TikTok now. And, you know, Wildband just mentioned that we have a What If series. Like we kind of do quick rapid reviews of the What If series. Jay and I also just did a rapid review of Shang-Chi that'll be up within the next couple of days. We also dropped our final look back of the summer, which is David Cronenberg's The Fly, 35th anniversary of that. So if you have not looked at that, check us out on YouTube. And that's about all I got.
Real quick, Joe and I, we're going to be on Twitch, solely on Twitch. Well, we'll probably be Twitch and Facebook. We're not going to do YouTube. We're going to be solely on Twitch for our first ever live, gaming. And we both agreed that we're going to do Marvel vs. Capcom 2. What better game, with everything that we talk about on NerdCage, what better game to play than Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which is one of the best fighting games ever. I feel like the Marvel vs. Capcom series hasn't reached that same stratosphere that Marvel vs. Capcom 2 established. I haven't played the game in probably a decade. I'm really looking forward to squaring off against Joe. I'm gonna whoop his ass in front of everybody on the internet. Even though I haven't played in 10 years, I'm still confident in my ability. That I'm really looking forward to playing Marvel vs. Capcom 2 live at 8 o'clock Tuesday on NerdCage Live on Twitch, twitch.tv/NerdCage Live. Really looking forward to that. We have a lot more games and plans for that. Top of that, just some stuff that's in the works right now. Again, if you guys missed the announcement on Thursday and on Twitch and everything else, first and foremost, we are gonna, on the 23rd of September, we're having TabMonk99. He's gonna be on with us. Hold on, my StreamYard just froze here. Leah Montalongo, the original Sindel, is going to be on the 24th of September on Friday, 8 o'clock. So be there for that. If you have any questions for Miss Montalongo, please submit it to me, Mark, or Joe, and we'll make sure that your question gets asked on air because, again, with this being a huge event, I don't know if we're going to be able to keep up with the chat and during the interview and all that. So please mark your calendars for September 24th. Again, rare opportunity, a live Q&A with the original Sindel, and she worked on Mortal Kombat 3, Mortal Kombat 4 Mythologies, and with Ed Boon and everything else. I cannot wait to hear her stories. She seems to be a wonderful lady. I watched her interview on other channels, and a big special thank you to Master Marquez for helping me arrange that. So we're very much looking forward to having Miss Montalongo, the original Sindel, and of course the day before on the 23rd we're having TabMonk99, who is like the biggest Mortal Kombat, one of the OG Mortal Kombat YouTubers. He's agreed to come on. Really looking forward to chopping up with him, talking the Mortal Kombat movie and of course Battle of the Realms and everything else. And then next Thursday, we're gonna be doing our first ever live call-in show. We're gonna be doing a StreamYard show. We're gonna switch to StreamYard so it just makes it easier for me to invite people in, but it's gonna be me, Titan Goji, and of course hopefully Big Jack will make it too, and it'll give us the chance to have our fans of the show, and if you're a fan of Titan Goji or Real Talk or Big Jack, you're gonna give you the opportunity to hop on and talk to us face to face live. So yeah, we're gonna have our first call-in show, so anyone can call in. You just click on the link, make sure your camera and microphone's on, and have a conversation with us, talk to us about anything. That will be next Thursday, the 9th. And of course, the Planet of the Apes video is baking in the oven. I cannot wait to drop that. And there's something else baking in the oven. I'm not gonna talk about that. It's gonna be a surprise. There's a surprise video coming. I'm not gonna say what it is. Mark can just.
It's pretty awesome though. We're working on it.
It's gonna be really amazing. But yeah, but please definitely mark your calendar for Friday, September 24th. Again, Leah Montalongo. I am very excited that she's coming on to hang out with us. I mean, again, childhood dream come true. She's awesome, and you know, I always loved Sindel. Sindel is always a badass character. Joe, anything you want to plug in before we call it a night?
No, I think you pretty much covered it.
Yeah. So you better get your Marvel vs. Capcom skills up to date.
I'm ready. I've been training all week.
We're ready for this. All right. So again, thank you to everybody who came in via Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch to hang out with us to talk everything Shang-Chi. I hope you guys had a blast doing it. Again, we'll be back. We'll be on Twitch on Tuesday, and we'll be back here on Thursday as well. So before we go, we ask you to please like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, spread that shit like Sylvester USA from Syracuse, New York, Louisville, Kentucky, and Phoenix, Arizona, to all of our friends and fans around the world at NerdCage Live and at Wild Bandit, Fallen One Gaming. As always, everybody, enjoy life, stay safe, and good night.
Sayonara.
Good night.
Sindel wins. Fatality. Finish him. Flawless victory. Prepare to die.
That's right, NerdCage Nation. The original Sindel, Tanya, and Serena, Leah Montalongo will be here on NerdCage Live for a live Q&A on Friday, September 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 7 p.m. Central. Be there.
Ooh, trying to get out of the NerdCage, are ya? Well, before you go, hit that subscribe button. And if you're really intrigued, ring that bell. Thank you for dropping by. Until next time, tell everyone you know about NerdCage Live!